Hey guys, we're back. This time we're going to be taking a look at Starcadia Quest from Cool Mini or Not. This is the spiritual successor to Arcadia Quest. It's set in a sci-fi setting, has the same basic concept but an overhaul to a bit of the rules and some changes to make it play a little smoother. Some are good, some are okay, but we'll get in and take a look. So the first thing we have is our new rulebook, and even if you're familiar with Arcadia Quest, definitely give this a read through because there are some rules that have changed and are different in here. They do a pretty good job of explaining everything now. I like the way it's set up. I think the line of sight rules are exactly the same, but things like payback I think have changed, and guard reaction, a few other odds and ends, the upgrade phase, and so on. And there's a rule summary on the back here for quick reference. They did a much better job with the insert. Mine's a disaster because I don't have them in there quite right because they didn't actually tell you how to put stuff in there. So I kind of guessed, and apparently I didn't do it properly. And the upgrade tokens here, I think you're supposed to lay them in multiple piles flat so that the lid shuts flat. Because of the way I have them in here, this stands up a little and you can see all my tokens dumped because I flipped the box over. But get the plastic tray there. So here we have our player boards, and they have Starcadia artwork on the back with the different guild logos in the middle. And then the change here is you only have 2-man teams now with 6 upgrades for each character, which is an interesting change. We've actually played Arcadia Quest that way before. But you have your 4 different factions. Then we have our monster board, and this is done differently. Instead of a respawn track and things, your monsters have cards that get placed on here based on their rank. And then their stats are actually on here as well, so they all share the same stats depending on if they're troopers or officers. And victory points they're worth and things change based on where they are. Monsters have their own phase at the end of each player's turn. And when you get to that, you draw a card and it'll tell you which one to activate and how that works. Kind of a cool new system, I like that. Then we have our campaign records, so you can keep track. The campaign is quite a bit shorter now. It's only 4 scenarios long with a couple of branches. There's 2A, 2B, 3A, B, and C, and then 4. So it's a much smaller campaign. And they play much quicker though, so it's possible to play through the entire campaign in one sitting now. But just in case, you have these so you can keep track. So we have our map tiles, and there's a stack of these. I don't know how many there are. 10. And they're one-sided in this because you're going to randomly deal these out to fill the scenarios and then reveal them. So it makes it more variety. You can play the same mission multiple times and it's going to be different depending on which tiles come up. Now let's go through them real quick. Each one's different. You can see they have wall sections here. They have different items that'll be on them. There's computer terminals and teleporters. These are mob spawners here. Each one is completely different design, which is kind of cool. This one has a pile of victory points that are on there. But yeah, a lot of variety in there. And then this one I like because they're actually playing Arcadia Quest on the table. I think that was all of them. But yeah, some variety there. They are slightly larger than the Arcadia Quest tiles. If you look, the Arcadia Quest tiles were 3x3. These are 4x4, so you get a whole extra row out there too. So we have our upgrades. Instead of cards now, they're these little tokens. And instead of having guild tokens to put on them when they're exhausted, you flip them over. They turn black and white when they're exhausted. And you have your starting gear here. They're all marked in the corner there. What mission they're from and what they're used for. But you get a whole ton of those because there's ones for the upgrades. So you have your first level upgrades, your second level upgrades, third, and so on. And then there's some special rewards for certain campaigns. There's also multiple types of upgrades. There's weapons, there's ranged weapons, melee weapons, gloves. I think there's a whole set of armor, rings, like extra add-ons, and boosters basically. For our tokens, we've got 2 of each color portal. There's cards that allow you to place a new portal on the map so you can jump around quicker. So you get these cards that allow you to pick a specific color and you can add it to a map tile, which then adds a new teleporter to the existing ones that are already on the tiles. Kind of a neat little thing. You have your door tokens, and they have a closed and locked icon on one side and an open icon on the other. It takes one of your movement points to flip these over to open them. We have our victory point tokens, and these, from what I hear, you run out of fairly quickly. And it's also worth noting, like, one whole sheet of mine were horribly off-centered. I thought originally they were supposed to be like that, but then the other sheet I got is centered, so, you know, like these ones are pretty centered. Those ones are terribly off. Not that it matters, but keep an eye out for that. But everybody says you run out of these, so you have to find some other way to keep track. I think there's plenty here, and I have the plastic token pack, so I should be okay. Next we have a bunch of wound tokens. Whenever a monster or character takes wounds, you use these to keep track of your damage until they're killed. We have a pile of the different upgrades you can find on the map. That one does not belong in there. And these go from hoverboards, which allow you to move extra, stim packs, which you can use for healing, and recharges, which you can use to refresh your equipment. And these are found scattered throughout the map. You pick them up, you put them on your character card, and you can use them later on for the effects. And then we have a bunch of mission objectives, and these are used for various mission things throughout the game. There's a couple different colored ones, and depending on the scenario, they're going to be used for different things depending on the game you're playing. There's that tray. Like I said, I think these tokens are meant to go in this way, and then you stack a second stack of them next to it, like so, and then the lid will actually sit flat. I had them originally in this way, which caused the lid to sit up because they stick over the top, and I think that's why everything dumped when I flipped over the board. They don't come with a thing that tells you how to fill this tray, so you kind of got to guess on it. But obviously these rectangle ones are for the upgrade tokens. There's some over here too. The round ones are pretty obvious for the teleporter tokens. And then these fit these tokens pretty well, so I'm assuming they're supposed to go in there. But you just kind of have to guess your first time, and I put the doors in this one, which I think is what that's for. But nice tray though, much better than Cool Mini or Not's original inserts for Arcadia Quest, which were just a piece of cardboard. I think I will change mine around though and use this tray in the bottom of the box and swap it with the others. Because now that that's out, you can see our bottom tray. I'm going to put these on top because you're going to have to get this box out every time. And you're going to need these cards every time, so it makes more sense to have them on top. So next thing we have is our cards here. And these are the event cards. And there's quite a bit here. These are going to be what you use during the, basically the enemy's turn. At the end of your turn, you're going to flip one of these over. and it's going to tell you which card on that tray to activate. So in this case, it's going to be whatever officer number 2 is. If there isn't one, you just skip that part. If there is one, but he's not on the field, you would spawn one of those. And if there is one on the table, then you activate him just like you would any of your characters. And then at the bottom, there's an extra little bit you get to do. So every card does 2 things. And some of them are really interesting. And the cool thing about this is it adds a lot more to the game where the enemies feel like enemies. They're actually moving around and attacking. And since you're the player, the active player who draws these gets to choose what they do. So you can move them out of your way for your next turn, but there's going to be a whole other round before it gets back to you so people can block it off again. Or you can use them to attack a weakened enemy, get them out of the way, move them away from an objective, things like that. Or you can be nice to someone, move them away from somebody who's in trouble. Maybe they got a character that's about to die. And lots of different strategies and things you can do. And I really like the variety in this. And I hope they come up with something like this for Arcadia Quest too. Next we have our monster cards. And on the back they tell you what they qualify as. What ranks. So officers, troopers, and the villains. And on the front you have basic stats, and notice there is no health or overkill or movement. Those are all listed on the board that you're going to put them on. So depending on what rank they spawn as, when you do your game, say these guys end up being the trooper number 2, they go under there, and they're going to have the stats that are listed on the side over here. It is worth noting that the enemies are a lot stronger in this as they all have defense dice. Even your basic grunts have defense dice. They have their attack value over here and what you need to roll on the dice, whether it be melee or ranged. And then a special ability on the bottom that varies from each creature. And there are some cool looking guys in this. And we have our hero cards, and there's only 8 heroes included in the box set because you're only using 2 at a team instead of 3 like Arcadia Quest. As with Arcadia, they're all themed based on sci-fi characters. You have Han alone instead of Han Solo, and Baka Baka or Babaka instead of Chewbacca, things like that. They all have references to various sci-fi and related characters. There's Blade. Cool variety of them in there though, and we'll get to those more when we get to the minion or the actual miniatures. We have the colored bases you can put on your models. These I kind of on the fence about. I've seen them used in other games where they're more of a rubbery. These are hard plastic, so you actually have to snap them on the bases. And it's fine with the standard ones, but as soon as you paint them, I worry about these ripping the paint off because they snap on rather tightly. And also some of them, when you're trying to pull the base back off, you run the risk of breaking the miniatures off the base because some of them are only connected by like 1 foot. So I know in our other games we haven't actually even used these. We just kind of go by. Everybody knows who's on their team, and you have to keep track of who's using which character from the other teams. It's not that hard considering the game maxes out at 4 players. You know your own, so you're really only trying to remember whose is who's on 6 other figures. It isn't that difficult, but they're there if you want to use them. Next we have our dice. This is one of the big changes from the main Arcadia Quest system. Is gone are the days of black attack dice and white defense dice. They're all 1 die now, and they just basically removed the blanks and put everything on 1 die. Criticals are still the same. You have your melee attack for the swords, and ranged attack is guns now instead of bows. There's things like this one, which has a melee and a defense. You basically just ignore the other one. So if you're rolling defense trying to get shields, that still counts as a shield. If you're rolling attack, that still counts as a melee. So it's all what you're looking for. And if it's not the correct thing, then you just count it as a blank. The percentages and things haven't changed as far as I know. So everything else is the same as far as those go. And they are nice etched dice, as you would expect. Can't really get that to focus on there, but yeah, they're etched in and then painted, so you don't have to worry about it rubbing off. Onto the quest cards. These kind of replaced the quest book that the old game had. Now all of your scenarios are done through a number of cards here. So you have your first card that tells you how to set up, where to place your tiles, and again these are placed randomly and then revealed, and then you put your shuttles on there. That's what these little ones are. We'll get to those. It tells you where to spawn your enemies, what to place where for the spawn board, and then you have your quests. Quest 1, Quest 2, quest rewards at the bottom. And it also tells you how many cards there are, because I think some of the later ones have more than 3 cards. So just to let you know what all there is to that specific mission. And there's a variety of different missions in here. I said there's only 4 to go through the campaign, but there are some branching paths you can choose. And of course at the end we have our basic PvP quests to kill a player from an opposing faction. I kind of like those in the fact that now you have this card referencing right on the side of the table and you don't have to look things up in the book. But at the same time, I miss the fluff and stories that went with them in the old quest book. There's no real fluff story to these. You can kind of get a feeling for what's going on just by the name of the quest. But you have to basically come up with your own stories, which is maybe something small, but sadly lacking from the original. And then finally we have the shuttle tokens. These are basically your spawn points. So instead of having a specific spawn area on the map, you each get one of these little shuttles, and at the beginning of your setup phase or whatever, you're going to choose one of these spawn locations to dock your ship. And it's worth noting, it's not actually in the rules, but I've seen people comment on it. When you first dock your ship, it makes sense to put a closed door, and sure, you have to spend one of your movement points at the beginning to open that door, but it prevents you from getting shot at before you ever get a first turn. Somebody had a playthrough video up, and one girl, both of her team members got wiped out before they even left the shuttle, before she even got her first turn, so she had to spend her first turn resting to revive her team. So putting the doors on there makes people actually have to do a little bit of work. It's still possible for them to attack you in your shuttle, but it's less likely to get wiped out before you ever get a first turn. That's also not actually in the rules, but I think we're going to house rule it for our games, and I know a bunch of other people have as well. And then the last bit we have here are the models. And there's a decent amount of them here on the basic set. You have your various sci-fi themed characters here. I love Balbaka, or whatever his name is. He's great. And I'm not going to take each one out. There's so many other videos out there that show you all the miniatures. I'm just going to go through them quick here. Those guys are just adorable. I love their giant eyeballs. And then you have the slightly bigger guys here. Big machine guns. And these guys with their spears. And then the somewhat large creatures here. Boss man. Those guys. I love her with her big spiky bits. She always does at least one move when she attacks, even if she misses. It's an interesting creature there. Interesting enough, I said I wasn't going to show everybody, but Star Kid here is about the same proportions as an Arcadia Quest miniature, whereas everybody else seems to be quite a bit bigger and bulkier. I think she's supposed to be a Klingon, but maybe it's just the style. Most of them are alienish anyway, but a lot of them seem much more bulky. Not that it really matters. So for a quick idea of how the game plays here, we have it set up. We have Hana and Babaka as our team. We have their starting upgrades distributed. We gave Hana a bunch of ranged. She's got the blaster rifle, the dot sight, and the kitty primed, which is a booster. And then Babaka's got the melee base stuff. He has the iron fists, the pulse blade, and the repeater pistol, just so he has a secondary weapon, and then some armor. And here we have our board set up. Got a couple bad guys around, a couple scuttlebutts, and a couple weevils. And then we have our shuttle docked with our two characters on it. Then there's a couple gadgets strewn throughout the board. I drew a random tile, so we got all hoverboards, I think. And the idea here is to you have 4 movement points. To use a movement point, taking a step counts as a movement point. Opening or closing a door counts as a movement point. Using one of the teleporters counts as a movement point. And enemies guard the 4 spots adjacent to them. So if you were here and decided to walk away, this guy here is going to attack you for walking away and basically ignoring him. Whereas they also get a guard reaction. So in our case, we're going to have Babaka move forward. That's our 1 movement point. Now you can use all of your movement and then attack, or you can use all of your attacks and then move. But you can't split your movement up. So I couldn't do 1 move, fight, and then continue on with my move. Once I stop and start attacking, the movement's over. So in this case, we are going to attack with our pulse blade, which here rolls 3 dice. And I'm looking for the melee swords. So we flip that over to designate we're using it, and we're going to use the iron fists along with it, which give us a +1. So we flip that over as well. So we'll be rolling 4 dice, looking for swords. And we got 2 blasters, 2 swords, so that'll be 2 hits. Now these are counted as hits, not actual wounds yet. Now we take our bad guy, which is our little scuttlebutt, and look at his card. He gets 2 defense dice, so we're going to roll 2. Try to get shields for him. He managed to get 1 shield, so he's going to block one of those 2 hits, so he's only going to take 1 wound. So we take one of our wound markers, and we're going to mark him that he's wounded. If he takes an additional wound by our chart here, 2 will kill him. It takes 4 in 1 single attack for him not to be able to fight back. So in this case, he is going to hit back. And he's a strong little guy. And we get 4 back. Ooh, that's painful. So he got 2 there, 1 here, because this has the double symbol on it. And then criticals. And in Starcadia Quest, a critical not only counts as a hit, but you get an additional die. And he rolled another critical. So you get another die. And this exploding die mechanic is crazy. So he got a pistol that time and missed. So he ended up with 5 hits on us. Now another type of upgrade here is our passive armor. Because we have this equipped, we always get this bonus. So we actually have a defense die and a reroll, which I forgot about on the attack, but too late for that now. So we are going to get these bonuses though on our defense. And we look at our card here. Babaka has a 3 defense, so we have +1 for the armor, so we're going to have 4 defense and a reroll. You can never have too many dice in this game because it's always better to leave these so you can keep track of how many hits there are and roll different dice for defense. So we're going to roll our defense dice. And that is a terrible roll. We did get a critical, which counts as a defense and allows us to roll an extra die. And that is terrible. But we get 1 reroll where we can reroll 1 of these dice. And no. So we managed to block 1 of the 5 hits. So we take that away. We're going to take 4 damage. Babaka luckily has 5 hit points, so he does not die from that. But that is a terrible opening attack. We take our 4, put them on his character card to represent he's hurt badly. And then that would be the end of our phase. We moved, we attacked. Oh, and we get to pick up this gadget board that we're on because there's no enemies on the space that we're currently on. So the last thing on our turn is to draw one of these cards. We get reinforcements have arrived. This is a level 2 officer, which we do not have, so we ignore the top half, and the bottom summons a trooper. And there's been some debate on what summon actually means, because it's not spawn, it's not move one that's already in existence. I think summon allows you to get another one. That seems to be the general consensus. So we would get to our supply of monsters, and we're going to summon another scuttlebutt. There's 2 spawn points on this map. This one already has a guy. You can have 2 guys on one square, but we're going to put one over there on the other spawn point. And that would end our turn. Now you'd go on to the next player's turn, and they would do their phases, and so on. Eventually, all of your items are going to be exhausted. And when that happens, you have no more options you can do. So you need to rest. Resting allows you to bring back a hero that's been killed. Say he took more health and actually died. It allows you to bring him back. You can bring him back at your spawn point, which is in your shuttle, or adjacent to one of your friendly models, as long as it's not also adjacent to a mob. So we could put him back here in the shuttle, and that would be his respawn. It also unexhausts all of your upgrades. The trade-off is that it also ends your turn. That's all you can do on that turn. It does not heal wounds either, so you're still wounded if you were originally hit. So like he was here, he didn't actually die. We get all of his stuff back, but he's still wounded. And then there's various objectives on the map. Depending on your mission, you may need to get to computer terminals, which I don't think there is one on this map. Don't see one. So, oh yeah, the scuttlebutt's on it. Little computer terminal icon here. And most of your objectives are going to be involved getting to those to do things or picking up objective tokens on the map in order to complete your missions. And that's pretty much how the whole game goes. You're going to keep doing this turn over turn. Basically, all the players are trying to complete the same objectives while screwing over the other players, preventing them from completing it. Whenever you actually kill someone or achieve an objective, like say we were to kill the scuttlebutt here on the following turn, it says victory points here for 1, so you're going to get 1 victory token, and that goes to your guild team. And he would be dead, go away, and then you continue on. Overall though, that's a pretty good look at how gameplay works. I do like the fact that you have 4 movement points now, so say he was here, I could move 1, 2, 3, and then do my attack. Or if I have a ranged from here, I can shoot diagonally, shoot this guy, maybe kill him, and then I still have my 4 movement to do whatever I want. Generally, picking up a token like the gadgets here or objectives that are on the map require you to be in a space with no enemies. So if there's still an enemy here, even if I move here, I'm going to have to fight him. And you just have to keep in mind that if you were to say be here and I walk away from this guy is going to attack and try to stab me in the back. And generally when you do attack and they get a payback reaction like that, the player to your right is going to be the one rolling the dice. Keep that in mind. You don't want to tick them off because they're going to be hitting you a lot. And they get to choose whether they want to do the monster's movement, do their attack. In most cases they are going to move towards you. Say you were here and you shot him at range. Well, the scuttlebutt's only got melee, but they have a movement of 3, so he's going to move up in order to be able to fight you. Generally, that's going to be the case. Sometimes, if I need to kill, say there's only one specific mob left of a certain type and you have to kill them to achieve an objective, maybe you don't want to move them closer to him. Maybe if he shoots you and he survives, you want to make him run away to another place where it's easier for you to kill him and finish him off, then put them over there closer to that guy so next turn they can achieve that objective. So there is some strategy involved in that too. But yeah, the majority of it is positioning. You want your ranged guys in the back, you want your melee guys up front. And one thing to keep in mind is that 2 characters on the same square are allowed, but they block line of sight through them. So if there was another, if there was a hallway here and there was another team, another player back here, he can no longer shoot this scuttlebutt because these 2 are blocking the way. They have to keep that in mind. But that's where the teleporters come in. You can teleport around the map for 1 movement point if you're on this space. Costs 1 to go to any other space, and that doesn't count as leaving a space next to a monster as well using a teleporter. But there has to be a corresponding teleporter somewhere on the board to go to. And that's pretty much the gist of how the game plays. And that's a look at everything that comes with Starcadia Quest. Overall, the game looks to be a lot of fun. It plays quite a bit quicker than the original Arcadia Quest, at a cost of a couple things, most notably the lack of the stories for the missions, which may or may not matter to you. The drafting system where you use to get your upgrades is a completely different system. It plays way faster, but at the same time doesn't have that same drafting feel that the original did. I kind of liked the way that the original system worked. Now it's like an open market where you just grab what you want and it goes through each player. The event cards add a awesome new twist to make the enemies a lot more dangerous and basically make them more active. They don't only have guard reactions, they don't only have payback reactions now. They actually take turns and do things. The new quest cards with all the scenarios right on the cards are kind of nice, and they kind of combine the original quest cards and the campaign book, so I like the fact that those are referenced right at the table, so anything you need to look up, it's right there. That's quick and handy. Downsizing to only 2 members per team instead of 3 seems like a good fit. It helps the game move along faster, and most of the time people were only using 2 characters anyway, and your third one kind of got left behind, so it helps out there. And it also gives you that 6 upgrades per person instead of only 4. The other real big change here is that the monsters do not scale with you as you grow in power throughout the game. Where in Arcadia Quest, each 2 levels, I think, the monsters got stronger. Here they do not. You just usually end up with more of them. It doesn't seem to be that big of a deal because overall they are stronger. Even the base guys, like I said, have 2 or 3 defense dice, where in Arcadia Quest they had none. So they're already tougher from the get-go. And your equipment doesn't really scale to massive amounts like it did in that game, so you can kind of balance things out. I do like the fact that there's a bunch of different mods basically that you can put on certain equipment to boost them up, and they are limited by ranged or melee. Like in this case you have a red dot sight, which is a laser scope basically, can only be mounted on a ranged weapon. It gives you +1 die to your attack. Things like that are really cool. They had boosting equipment in the old game, but these are just more interesting the way they're implemented. Overall though, I think it's a solid game. I like it. It's faster playing, and the few negatives that I have to say about it aren't anything game breaking. So definitely, if it looks like something you'd be interested, check it out. And that's going to wrap it up for our look at Starcadia Quest from Cool Mini or Not. As always, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.